name is Lucille Songhai. I'm Assistant Director of Government and Community Relations at MTA New York City Transit. I'm joined by my colleagues, Katerina Patori, who actually is going to be the new liaison for Roosevelt Island after this presentation this evening. And I'm also joined by my colleague, Ian Martin, who is with our operations planning team. So before we launch into the presentation, which I think a bunch of folks here have already seen previously, I just really want to thank RIOC for being partners with us in this project. This 63rd Street Tunnel project is actually impacting 3 boroughs, Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens. But in particular, the folks here in Roosevelt Island will be experiencing most of the disruption in terms of service. And so over the last few months, when we originally came to Community Board 8 in Manhattan to talk about this, we did have an original plan. We sort of went back to the drawing board, took a look at some things, and actually really heard a lot of the responses from folks at CB8 and also from the Roosevelt Island committee at CB8. And we came back with this second plan, which I think, and after hearing from other folks, we think reflects a better service plan for folks that will still be impacting folks on Roosevelt Island, but will still be providing some measure of subway service during the outage. So we have been going, to every stakeholder that we could talk to. I know that myself and Katerina at some point will be here back on the island with Paul, putting up signage for folks all around, and we look forward to doing that and really engaging with folks. But I really want to make sure that folks understand that when it is time for us to really enact this project, that we will also have supports here in terms of staffing, making sure that people understand where to get onto the shuttle buses, where, when and what platforms they need to go to. We also have been in very close communication with partners at Cornell Tech, as well as with Kohler Hospital. And so we're working with them to make sure that there is enough coverage, particularly for Kohler Hospital, so that their staff have the resources that they need to get on and off the island. So just wanting to put that out there before we get started. Pardon? Okay. So I just want to introduce Ian to come up. He's going to give our presentation, and we are here and available for any questions afterwards. Thank you all so much.
Great. Thank you, Lucille, and thank you all for coming out tonight. It's good to be here. And so I'll be introducing the latest round of the service plan for the 63rd Street Direct Fixation Track Replacement Project. So as Lucille said, we've gone to a couple of other meetings with this presentation, so some may have seen it before. But in any case, we'll run through it. So this is a project that we've been planning for several years now. This is to replace track on the 63rd Street line. For those who don't know, the 63rd Street line is the segment of the F line running between Queens and Manhattan, covering the 21st Street, Queensbridge, Roosevelt Island, Lexington 63rd and 57th Street stations. So to start things off, this track on the 63rd Street line, it was installed in about 1981, so quite a while before the line actually opened in 1989. The notable thing about the track design here is it's something called Direct Fixation Track. So this was a type of track that was very popular in subway construction in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, and through the present day. Because it is basically, in this track design, the rails are bolted directly to the tunnel floor, which is slightly different from the style of track that we have on most of the rest of the subway system. And it allows the tunnels to be built slightly smaller. Now, the challenge with this type of track comes when it is time to replace the track. It's basically a full reconstruction of the entire track bed, so it can't really be done incrementally. It's something we have to basically do it all at once. So the track is, over 40 years old at this point. It's due for replacement. So we want to be able to get in there and get this work done as quickly as we can. And this section, is a significant fraction of F-riders travel through this area. We had about 192,000 customers in 2019 and about 132,000 customers this year. And just, yes, so this is all the entire segment from 57th Street, 6th Avenue in Manhattan through to 21st Street, Queensbridge in Queens. So some of the current conditions, we have some issues where we have cracks in what is called the bench wall. This is the section of the tunnel running along the side of the tracks here, and some cracking in the plinths that support the rails along the tunnel. So these are some of the conditions that we want to be able to get in and fix as part of this work. So, you know, the full scope of work is essentially a full reconstruction of all the track on the 63rd Street line between Rockefeller Center through the junction with the E&M lines in Queens. And so it'll be removing the existing track, constructing new track, and doing a bunch of other work as well for just generally, you know, extending the life of this infrastructure and, you know, making it good for another 40 years of service. So in terms of the service plan, which I know is what everybody wants to hear about. So during this project, because we'll have so much work going on the 65th Street line, we'll essentially have one track at a time out of service all the way from 57th Street in Manhattan through to Queens. So that means that the F train will be operating over the 53rd Street line where the M currently operates between Queens and Manhattan. The M train will be terminating at 57th Street in Manhattan on weekdays when it operates through to 6th Avenue. And then on the 63rd Street line itself, we're going to have a shuttle train operating on the track that is not under reconstruction. So say if we have the Queens-bound track being reconstructed, the Manhattan-bound track will have the shuttle train, and that'll be one train. It'll essentially just run from Queensbridge over to Lexington 63rd, and then it'll turn around and go right back. But because of the time it takes to do that, the most frequent we can run that shuttle train is every 20 minutes. So that will provide a subway connection in both directions through the entire project, both to Manhattan and to Queens. And in Manhattan, you know, will be the same transfer to the Q train that currently exists from the F. As a result of the M train not running on Queens Boulevard, we're going to try to increase our service a little bit in order to serve those stations. For customers who are connecting from particularly Roosevelt Island through to Queens, the shuttle train will only be running as far as 21st Street, Queensbridge. And then between 21st Street, Queensbridge and the Queens Plaza station, we'll have a free shuttle bus, and that shuttle connection will run 24 hours a day. So for passengers traveling through from Queens, they would take EF or R train, for example, to Queens Plaza, or an N or 7 train to Queensboro Plaza, and then they could board the shuttle bus to connect to the shuttle train, or they could take the train through to Manhattan and then take the tram or the shuttle train back to Roosevelt Island. So that's the weekday operation. So this is what we'd be running, you know, during the week when the M train typically runs through to Queens. So overnight, we have as part of the work that's going on, the contractor for this construction, they need to be able to get their work trains in and out of the work site. And in order to do that, they need access to both tracks on the 63rd Street line. So we have to suspend the shuttle train for a couple of hours every night. So this is going to be between midnight and 5 a.m. The shuttle train will not run, but there will be that shuttle bus, which always runs between Queensbridge and Queens Plaza, will be extended to also connect to Roosevelt Island. So that bus will run overnight, running from Roosevelt Island to the Queens Plaza station, providing that connection. Otherwise, you know, the F train will continue to do what it does during the day. Will run by the 53rd Street line, and you know, other night subway service as it normally does. So the primary change there, particularly at Roosevelt Island, is the suspension of the shuttle train. On the weekends, however, the shuttle train will run during the day, and we will have, you know, the only major change here is that the 57th Street station in Manhattan will be closed nights and weekends because the M train does not normally run in that area on nights and weekends. But otherwise, the shuttle train will be running between Lexington 63rd Street and Queensbridge with the free shuttle connection from Queensbridge over to Queens Plaza. And that shuttle will run 20 minutes all hours during any point that it's running. So in terms of the specific information, I know this is kind of a wall of text here, but we wanted to try to enumerate all the possibilities. So if you're coming to or from Roosevelt Island, basically during the week, your best option is probably, especially if you're going to and from Manhattan, to take the shuttle train, and that will connect directly to the Q train, as you can with the F right now. And then the walking transfer to the NRW and 456 at Lexington 59th will still be there during the project. And then if for anybody who typically takes the F train from further lower Manhattan or Brooklyn, the transfer can be made to the Q at 34th Street Herald Square to access the shuttle train to get to and from Roosevelt Island. Between Roosevelt Island and Queens, there's the shuttle train which runs to Queensbridge, and then there's also the free shuttle bus that connects from there over to Queens Plaza and Queensboro Plaza. So I won't run through every minute detail of this, but there's sort of different we want to try to spell out all the alternatives by different times of day. We realize this is a very disruptive project, trying to provide as many alternatives as we can. So, in terms of what to expect as we get closer to the project, we're currently expecting this work to start in late August. We will do our typical sort of public information campaign. We will have a lot of signage up at all of the affected stations, especially here at Roosevelt Island. And we'll definitely have staff out in the system, both in advance of and during the initial weeks of the project, to explain to people that this is going to start, and then once it begins, to try to get people to their destinations as quickly as possible. So I don't know, Lucille, if there's anything else you want to.
Sure. I mean, obviously, we also have online. We'll be putting a project info on MTA.info. We have a very proactive social media component to this. We'll also be doing our online customer service via Twitter, WhatsApp, which you can use now to figure out how your travel path will either stay the same, how it will change. And also just community resources. We will be providing materials to our elected officials, to other community groups, both here on the island and also in Manhattan, to again really help folks get acclimated to what the changes will be. And then we will have our press outreach, which will take the place of press releases that we will distribute to our press partners, including here on the island. And that right there is a typical sign that we use that will will give folks an idea of what is to come. We'll have brochures that we'll hand out. And most importantly, we will have staff, particularly for the first week or two as people are transitioning. We will have staff members here on the island helping direct people onto the shuttles and making sure that they have a really good understanding of where they need to go.
That's it.
Excuse me, can you explain the length of time for the project?
So at this point, the project is slated to start in August. We do not yet have an end date. That is something that we'll have to get back to folks about. But again, we're anticipating that this is going to be for a significant amount of time, so that, we want to make sure that folks feel as comfortable as possible about what their travel paths will be.
Like, could it be a year or more?
I don't want to conjecture, can just say that, we'll get back to you with what the end date will be. We have other projects that we're also balancing this with, and so we want to make sure that we're accurate with what we say.
Is that 20 minutes, sorry, is that 20 minutes if I'm standing at a station at Roosevelt Island and I want to go Manhattan bound? Does that mean I'm going to see a Manhattan bound train every 20 minutes, or I'm going to see one go this way, another 20 minutes, I'm going to see one go in the opposite direction, which would mean a 40-minute time?
Great question. It would be 20 minutes between Manhattan-bound trains. So the train will come back. There will be a train passing through every 10, but every other train will be going to Manhattan.
This may not be your question. This is more for the board, I think. I'm sorry, I thought you called on me. Go ahead, Jude.
Can you go back to the one that says weekend? Okay. Is that the one that says, on selected weekends with both tracks out, shuttle service? In simple words, how many weekends are we gonna discover we have nothing except shuttle buses?
So again, that's something that we're gonna have to get back to folks. There will be some selected weekends though that we will only be relying on the shuttle buses, but we will let people know very far in advance, again, so that folks can prepare.
How
Is there
about,
a reason to that, by the way?
It's similar to the night work. It's, you know, will probably be a point, there'll be certain points during the project where they have to reposition equipment, and we basically can't have them moving equipment while we have the shuttle train running, because the shuttle train will have exclusive use of the other track.
And it's part of the reason why we need that 12 to 5 a.m. shutdown, so that the work trains can actually get to the sites, and they're not conflicting with the actual shuttle trains.
Is this work gonna conflict with any of the ongoing work that is going on right now at the Ave train with the elevators and escalators?
It should not, no.
one other question, can shuttle buses be our red buses run on a schedule? Why can't shuttle buses from the subway station also run on a schedule? Because when MTA runs shuttles, you never know where and when. I mean, Roosevelt Island runs red buses on a schedule, the 102 runs on a schedule. Your shuttle buses should have a posted schedule so that people know that, you know, how long am I gonna wait?
Yeah, they bunch up too.
Excuse me?
I've seen 3 in a row, right?
Yeah, and but seriously, a schedule, a bus schedule and a subway schedule. We're very regimented out here,
That's a great suggestion, we'll take it back.
please.
I don't know who to call when is it okay if I call him, folks?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, will the tram be running continuously while this is going on? Anybody? Will the tram be running continuously while this is
It will
going
run
on?
as of now, we're planning to run it on the normal schedule, which, we run it. We don't run it continuously all night. I believe the last tram ride, 2 Roosevelt Islands at 2 in the morning.
Yes, what's called tram, sorry.
Tram.
Yeah,
And we shut down for a period of time, and then reopen, I think it's 5:30 or 6 in the
but we
morning.
won't be running it continuously all day,
That is
even
a
though
lot.
the train is only every 20 minutes?
We don't have plans to do that right now. I can't say that we won't do that, if it becomes necessary, but, that causes a lot of wear and tear on the, actual infrastructure of the tram itself to run it nonstop like that. So that's something that we're gonna have to look into further and make a determination when we have all the information.
Say that. So to President's point, we are going to explore every option to help supplement and work with the MTA for this, but health and safety for the tram riders is at our foremost goal. So we're going to still go through all those logistics as well and find out these residents.
Can I make a suggestion, please?
Sure.
Since you're a small audience, and although you're speaking to the board of the corporation, you're not really speaking to a large segment of the public, even though I know you're represented by media. Would you consider making an identical presentation to the public at large, perhaps during one of our public safety meetings, or a specially scheduled meeting, and maybe get a couple hundred people yelling in?
So we were invited to the meeting, unfortunately our folks were unable to make it to your public safety meeting, and so that's why we're here. We've also been to Community Board 8 multiple times, which is a public forum. So again, you know, this presentation that we have here is available, it's circulating in the public, and we're here to answer any and all questions that folks have. But we have very much so been very planted in the community and trying to have conversations with any and all stakeholders that want to have discussions with us.
Would you be open to having another
The other point I would
presentation
make
at
is that the soonest for people to give us some idea of how long this project is gonna last, the happier we'll be.
Sure.
I think it's, kind of alarming.
So my question was, can there be a town hall that we schedule specifically for this, so the community can come and watch this presentation and have a better understanding, because the more we keep them in the dark, the more disgruntled they will be.
I mean, we're always open and happy to have discussions about further public meetings. Yes.
I'd like to say, I think a town hall's a great idea. People are going to be sort of petrified of what's going on, they won't know. Secondly, I'd ask the board to think very carefully about the last comments they made. I'm not an engineer, so I can't talk about health and safety of the tram. But if I work on this island, or I work somewhere else, I need to come home to this island, between 2 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock, I can't get here. There's no other way. I understand I'm talking without knowledge. The last thing I want to mention to ask you guys, I think you've mentioned this before, it'll help people a lot with the shuttle to know when the schedule is going to be. So please confirm it'll show up on the apps that we all use to see when the train's coming. Because if I'm in my apartment and I can see it's going to be 18 minutes away, it helps me, and I think that's a very good thing.
We will have those things coordinated with our train time, so the digital screens that you see in the train station, we'll have that there.
And on your phone as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Some of us have an aversion to going to public meetings, so how about coming out Saturday and being at our farmer's market? That is the main meet place of this island. That's where we meet and see all of each other tomorrow morning, or is tomorrow Saturday? What did it say? Saturday morning, every Saturday morning. If you want to see the people of Roosevelt Island, you come to us on a Saturday morning. That's when you'll see probably about hundreds of people, 1,000 people. That's how you get to this community. You don't tell us we have a meeting in the church Wednesday at 6. We want to be informed. You want to inform us? Get your staff out here on a Saturday morning at the farmer's market, lots of good fruit and vegetables, and that's where you'll find the community, and that's how you talk to us. And that's where you'll get the real responses and the real suggestions.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm assuming that if it's running simply from 21st Street to 57, that you're not anticipating, right now the outgoing in the morning is every 4 minutes and it's packed. If the shuttle is originating at 21st, you're figuring that every 20 minutes will take care of the load and we won't be overloaded because it's a shorter run and we will literally be the second stop on it. So this is a zero-sum game. We're not going to end up with people packed up on the platform waiting because it's every 20 minutes.
I mean, we hope not. I mean, I think
Okay.
we were trying to.
Has anyone run the numbers maybe? Because it seems to me it should work, but
We think it will.
okay.
But also, we know that things change, and so we want to provide as much service as we can, particularly subway service, but also understanding that things might be a little crunched at times depending on how many people are actually
Right
at
now,
the station.
between 7:30 and 9, it's very common to have to wait several trains just to get on, outbound during the weekdays. So we're very much at capacity because we are the last, quote, Queens stop before Manhattan, even though we're Manhattan. But I would assume if the trains are empty at 21st and coming to us, we would essentially be the second stop. Okay.
Yes,
Maybe you can run longer than 12-car trains. I know the platforms are 12 cars in length. Maybe you can run longer trains. This way you get your 21st Street Queensbridge, full, and then you get your Roosevelt Island with empty cars for sure, and then you work that way through. Just from a queuing theory perspective, that's a way to maximize the throughput.
thank you for the suggestion. Any other questions from the board? Any other questions from anyone?
Do you have cards?
Thank you for coming.
The board has our contact information. Thank you.
We are going to facilitate larger meetings of other forums also. We continue our dialogue with MTA, with our information regularly also. So please stay tuned for that.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you all so much for having us.